Welcome to Deep Thought. Pay attention to page 6 stories. All right. Now, you know what I said, deep thought is more than just talking about metaphysics and stuff or whatever, spiritual topics. Deep thought is about thinking, period. Because ultimately, thinking has to be holistic. So in that vein, you have to think just going through everyday life. You have to be able to analyze stuff. Like, for example, during this recent government shutdown crisis, of course, it was dominating the news, right? Another thing that, just on a secondary thing, any of Donald Trump's antics, yeah, I said antics, dominates the news, of course, right? So it's a lot of stuff like his tweet or argument with somebody dominate the news. My thing is, what else is going on? See, while we were talking about this government shutdown, there's some real stuff happening in Venezuela, which you didn't really see on page 1 until like the shutdown was over. And even if it was on page 1, it was at the bottom of the page. Everything was dominated by the shutdown, this fight, these Congress people who, are, they still getting their money regardless of what any of them say, right? And as an aside with that government shutdown, yeah, the government workers might get their money back, but it's still an effect on the economy because a significant amount of people work as contractors with the government. Significant amount of people work as contractors. They don't necessarily get their money back. They don't, because I worked during a government shutdown. I actually had to work. Where I was working wasn't affected, right? And I knew for a fact the contractors weren't getting their money. They don't get their money. So because a lot of times those contracts are based on the actual work they do. If they don't do that work, they don't get paid. So that's just an aside. But pay attention to like the story that's they not talking about as much. Because usually a lot of this stuff, understand what the media does, right? You got something going on, so they'll talk about something else going on. Now, this thing in Venezuela is serious, right? And I'm like, wait a minute, how come we're not talking enough about this, right? Now they're just talking about sanctions and everything, but, you got a Russian presence. I mean, 2 heavy Russian bombers, had parked themselves in Venezuela. And that was actually in the news, but, you might see it, glance over, but then you want to know what's going on with the shutdown, right? And that's something the media always do. You can have some new technology roll out, or you could have something else happening, but you're not looking at it. In fact, this wise man told me, right? Very wise dude. He was interesting. I'm gonna tell you about him in a second. He really used his brain, and it's interesting. He didn't have an education beyond the 8th grade yet. He had a lot of money. He had a lot of money. That dude, I used to get financial advice from this dude, right? And one of the things he said, he even said it. He said, don't look at don't pay attention to all this political stuff. You want to know what's going on, read the Wall Street Journal or read the financial pages. That tell you everything. Because you'll have a lot of stuff going on, right? But it since it's not sensational, since it doesn't cater to the overall 8th grade mentality of the population, and I do mean that. Just as an aside, it was said that if you want your books to sell or something, write them at an 8th grade level. So, yeah, really, and I hate to say that, but that's pretty much true. But pay attention, because that's usually the thing that's going to affect you in the long term. Pay attention. Like, if you're going to get a paper, read it thoroughly. Right? Don't just read the sensational headlines. A lot of times it's important, but it's some bullshit. It's that page 6 story that's going to touch your life. Because always look below the surface. If you see anything happening, that means something else is happening somewhere that they need to draw your attention from. And the way they'll do it, they'll say, and then you can't say they hit it. Say, well, we wrote about it. We wrote about it. In fact, to divert your attention from stuff, often, and you have some power players out there, they'll actually, sometimes they might do a wag the dog thing, manufacture something, or have some fake outrage over something. I'm like, that ain't the thing to pay attention to, right? That ain't the thing. Like, I'll tell you, like, here is something, right? And this is related to this. If you want to know if you really want to know what to pay attention to sometimes as well, is think about where the media is talking about, or where, what they focusing on sometime, right? That's also a fact. Pay attention to what they're focusing on, or what they trying to get you to get outraged over. Right? Like, if they might just say, oh yeah, all this bad stuff is happening in this country and everything, this particular country, and it's a humanitarian crisis, and you got, women getting kidnapped in this country, but it was like, okay, that's the surface issue, right? That's the surface issue. It was like, okay, check out page 6, or check out the financial page and see what stocks are, having a run on them or something. Or check out, if you can, check out, maybe get beyond the newspaper and just see what precious metals like a particular country has, what resources a country has, right? Always dig below the surface. Like, okay, say you have a country, right? Say there's some violence against women or something, some humanitarian thing, right? And you get it, all the newspaper articles saying, oh, this regime is so bad, and oh, they're so corrupt or something, right? Say, okay, all right. Look in the financial page and see, okay, what kind of resources are there? Okay, who deals in those resources? Which business deals in those resources? Okay, what's their stock? Is their stock been going up? Or sometimes has it been going down, right? Who stands to benefit from it? See, one thing, you look at the news, you got to just start with the news story, right? And see what else is happening, right? Even with this recent shutdown, this might kick off, I'm serious, it could kick off another recession. And I'll just put it out there. You get a lot of Democrats trying to say, oh, Donald Trump blanked and all of that. He probably didn't. Some advisors probably came to him and said, hey, wait a minute, this is affecting more than just those government workers. Because you got to understand, if the government is shut down, right? Government is shut down. You got a lot of vendors. You got you got a lot of vendors who are affected. The government shutdown affect national parks. You got trash that wasn't getting picked up. The FDA, they weren't inspecting some stuff, and that can have a cascading effect, right? So then, and they probably talked about those things on page 6. They probably said it. Now, getting back to that government shutdown thing, Trump probably said, okay, he ain't so much as cave. He just didn't want to be associated with a recession. Because ultimately, when people, and maybe I'll talk about this in a future podcast, if you want to know who's going to win the election, just look at the economy. That's all you have to do. That's going to tell you more anything. What's the economy? People vote. People make political decisions based on their stomachs. People make political decisions ultimately based on their stomachs, which means money and everything, right? And that's on page 6 too. Like, if you want to know who's going to win the election, look, like right now you got Kamala Harris running, which is like, yeah, rah. She still got a whole year before she can officially run, right? When I say officially, announcing is one thing, but you start getting into the primaries. I'm going to look at what the economy is like. That's going to tell you. That's going to influence it. And, well, on a deeper level, nah, I ain't going to put that out there. Brother like his life. That's one of those things I can't talk about publicly. But pay attention to that. That's the most important thing you should get. Is like, if you're going to look at the story, look at everything else. Sit down and even if you read online stuff, go through everything, even if it seems obscure, and pay attention to it. I mean, even now, You know, because like you go in a supermarket or something, they keep you like, they'll let you know what every celebrity's doing. So anyway, I'm getting calls in. Wait a minute. Just real quick. It's while I'm recording, it's like snow outside. They probably saying no school today or something weird. I'll find out in a second. So anyway, that's it. And I'll talk to y'all later. Peace and blessings.